So you want to learn CAD. Awesome. If you're anything like me, you were interested in CAD for a while and you opened up a piece of Fusion 360 or SolidWorks and you started watching a few videos and it looked really cumbersome. You had no idea what to do, so you just kind of backed out of it and said, I don't need to learn this. I can build with my hands. I'm fine. Well, it's actually not that hard. If you've used a computer before, you can use CAD. Anyone. So CAD, what is CAD? Well, CAD is computer-aided design or drawing. It is, if you can think of something in your head, if you can draw a sketch out of something that you want to make, you can use CAD. So let's start with not something complicated like with all these buttons and stuff here. Let's use a version of CAD that we've all played with before. MSPaint. So stay with me on this. What did we have in Paint? Well, we had squares, we had circles, we had lines, we had splines, which I never really got good at, but splines, and then we had, I think, this thing where you can keep doing stuff like that. And then we had modifiers. We had erasers, we had paint brushes. That's weird. We had this thing. So you all know CAD or MS Paint, right? You do select your thing and you can hit delete and delete parts of it. So I'm not going to reteach you MS Paint, but let's look in Fusion 360 real quick. So go in here, sketch. Well, look at this. Look right here. These, we have our lines. We have our squares. We have our circles. We have our splines. Again, which I'm not really good at. That's it. That is all CAD is. It is working with these shapes and building things. Everything that you've done on a computer, or any designer or mechanical engineer that has done something on a computer, you start with these fundamental building blocks. So play around with these. They're really not that hard. You look down this list, so you see rectangle. Oh, what's a 2-point? What's a 3-point? What's look at all these things. There's so many different ways to draw a circle. Well, stop a minute and just hold on. So let's just go back and select, just like any other computer, select all, hit delete. Well, let's look at rectangle. 2-point rectangle. You know what a 2-point rectangle is. It's what you've done in Paint. You start in one corner, you work your way out. That's a 2-point rectangle. Center rectangle. Well, it's another rectangle, but instead of starting from one corner and going to another corner, you're starting in the center, and you're just picking how big you want your rectangle to be. Either way, you're getting to another rectangle. Same with a circle. You can do 2-point circle. It's similar to Paint, where you start in one corner, or side, or whatever, not really corners to a circle, and you select another side. Likewise, you can do something called a center diameter circle. You start in the center, and you work your way out. Awesome. So let's do something that we've all done in Paint. We've all made this. This is probably the first thing that we've done in Paint, was make a smiley face. Doink. Like I said, I'm not good with splines. Eyes, splines, down, down. There's a smiley face, and then let's give him a mouth. There you go, boink to boink. Let's say I want to make that in Fusion, in real CAD. So we can do that. Well, what did we do? Let's just select all, delete. Start with a circle. Make a circle here, circle here, circle here, and then we make a spline. Start here, down, down, double click, and then create a line from here to here. And that's it. That is, buggly eye. That is Fusion. That is all it is. It's just a professional drawing program. It's MS Paint on steroids. Now, here's some other things that you can do in Fusion, in any CAD program rather, that you can't do in Paint. Remember where you drew this and then that's kind of set in stone. You can't change the eyes. Well, you can in Fusion. You can kind of change the size of it, move it around a little bit. You can change stuff after you've made it. And in this case, since these were kind of locked on, it can kind of assume what you want. It kind of guesses what kind of a thing you want to draw. Right? Easy. Now, once you start getting crazy, you can do stuff like, make, something in 3D. That's really easy to do. Whoopsie. Maybe if you actually did it right. Enter. that is a 3D thing. You could actually 3D print that right now if you wanted to. You'd hit File, save as an STL, send it to your 3D printer, and you could print that. So CAD is not that hard. So, but great. So we've created a smiley face. That's kind of fun, but not really useful. So I'm going to show you the first thing I made in CAD. It took me hours to do. But before I show you in CAD, I'm going to draw it in Paint. All I needed to do was make a square. It was a 6 by 6 inch square with some drill holes in it. So I'm going to do that here. So I'm going to make my square. I kind of made that. I'm just going to move that down easy. And I wanted it to be a 6 inch square. So 6 inch. Right, easy enough. 6 inch. Easy enough. And I'm going to draw my little arrows, right? Little dimension lines. Little dimension lines. Little dimension lines. And then I needed to make circles. Now these were, I don't know, doesn't really matter. I think they were 1/4 inch circles that I needed an inch in from the sides. Oops, that's not really that far. So inch. And these needed to be a 1/4 inch. So well, inch. Good enough. And those needed to be 1/4 inch. And they needed to be an inch in from the side. So I would do, draw my little dimension line here. Little arrow, and a little arrow, and then a little arrow, and then 1 inch, and 1 inch. Right? So this is kind of what I needed to make. Now, you can do this. You can do this in Paint, right? Well, if you can do this in Paint, you can do this in Fusion. So let's go do that. Let's just, don't worry about this right now. Delete. Whoopsie. Delete. Don't worry about that. We'll go over that later. So we're here. We're back in our thing. So I needed to create a square. So I'll make a rectangle. Let's do that. Doesn't really matter the size. There. Well, it needs to be square, so we do something called a dimension. Hit dimension, hit the line we want to add a dimension to, and we say 6 inches, or 6 in. Do the same thing on this side. 6 in. And you'll see that it changes the shape, or Fusion changes the shape, and adds their dimension arrows for us. Now, I'm zooming in and out with my mouse, but, and then now we need to add our circles. So let's take you'll see that it wants to snap in, which is, useful, but we don't need it, so let's just draw an arbitrary size circle, see, arbitrary size circle, and an arbitrary sized circle, right? So first thing we can do is make these all a 1/4 inch size. That needs to be a 1/4 inch, so we just go through. All we do is tap the circle, add 0.25, and add 0.25. There. And just to make it easy on ourselves, we can just drag these over, kind of get them in the ballpark of where we want them. I mean, we could draw these wherever we wanted. We could draw these outside, and it'll figure it out. So we go back to our dimensions. We wanted this. No, well, sorry. Since I had that selected before, it thought I wanted to do the dimensions between here and there. Don't worry about that. Dimension between here and here. I want that to be 1 inch. And then I wanted this and this to be 1 inch. And then this and this. Convenient. This and that. Already done for me. That's a coincidence. It doesn't normally do that. Here, 1 inch. 1. Oops, I didn't select it. Here we go. 1 inch. And 1 inch. And then 1 inch. Right. Now, if anyone here has actually done design before, this is probably one of the most inefficient ways to do this, but it works. And we'll get into the advanced, tips and tricks later, but you can't really do tricks and make things more efficient if you don't know how they work to begin with. So, we just took what we did, this goofy thing in Paint, and we brought it over to Fusion. So, if you can do it in Paint, you can do it in Fusion. The tools are all right there. Now, if you want to do something more complicated, right? This is not that complicated of a thing. And just like before, you can go back and hit extrude, and you get something three-dimensional out of it, right? That's the funness. But great, you designed a plate. That's not that complicated. Well, what if you want to do something more complicated? Well, that gets too hard. Well, no. It's actually really easy. Just like building things in real life, you just start off with the basics. You start with wood. You start with, if you want to build a table, you don't just start with a table. You start with a square top, and then you add legs, and you add pieces, and you build up something big out of smaller pieces. Well, those squares that were here in this piece are building blocks that build something bigger. So let's say you want to build something like a staircase, right? Well, let's start in Paint, right? If we want to build a staircase looking thing in Paint, how might we do this? Well, there's a few ways you can do it. You can do it with a line, right? So you can take this line, staircase. Wow, this is coming out great. Staircase. And this is why professionals don't use Paint. So you can build it with a line, or you can build it with a series of rectangles, right? Rectangles. So when we use rectangles, we get these extra lines. Well, that's really easy to take out. So you can see that we got an extra line from this one, since I overlapped it, and an extra line from that one. So we really have two lines over each other. That's easy. You can go through with an eraser and, take it out, take it out, take it out. Yeah, well, you get the point. So we built two staircases using two different techniques, but we end up with the same result. So let's try that in Fusion. So we go back to here. Sketch. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that yet. We'll get into what sketches are and what all these things are. Just want you to learn the fundamentals and what CAD is. So we deleted that, and let's go back into, we started with the line first, right? Well, here's the beauty with something like Fusion or any CAD. You have these little patterns here, and they're there to help you. They're little guidelines. It thinks that if you're trying to draw a straight line, it'll help you draw a straight line. So let's use these grids. So we start here. We got our first line, second. Let's just go up two, up two, and we can go down, and then we can go over. Boom, staircase, right? Really easy. And then the other way we did it with rectangles. So let's follow the same grid. We started with this is really hard to see. Started there, and then now we add another one, there, and there, and then there, and there. Whoops. So that's the beauty. I accidentally went too short, but it's really easy just to make that a little bit longer, right? So you can go back to our rectangle and make the longer one. Right there. Right? Great. So we have the same thing, except we have these extra lines here, just like we did in Paint. So they have tools here for that. They have something called a trim tool, right? So trim is kind of like our eraser. It's a little bit smarter. It doesn't make us go up and down. It thinks, oh, there's a line here. Well, it probably wants us to trim it, so we can trim that line. Now, remember how there were two lines? Because there was a line here, and then this one went over there. You got to hit trim twice. So that's trimming one side of the box, that's trimming the other side of the box. One side of the box, other side of the box. So when you're making pieces in CAD, all you're doing is taking these things, they're called primitives, and you're adding them. You're just, it's a square on a square on a square on a square. Oops. And made that a little short. Made that a little short. Should be able to. Since I deleted that line, it kind of lost it. Anyways, I digress. That is really all CAD is. Building blocks on building blocks. Now, if you don't have CAD, download something like Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is free. If you're a hobbyist, just Google Fusion 360 hobbyist download whatever, and download it and set up an account. You really don't need anything besides a computer. I recommend getting a mouse, not like a little trackpad. If you just use a trackpad, you could probably do this, but just stick with if you can get a mouse, use a mouse. Oh my God, it'll save your life. And just mess around with things in 2D, right? So I'm going to close out of this. So I'm going to close out of a sketch, delete. We'll go over what sketches are later, but for right now, if you pick a plane like, say, XY, boink, create sketch. You're going to see these sketches and create, just mess around. Just create circles and primitives and stuff and build up on that. One thing that you might see that's different is units right here. You can change that to inches, millimeters, whatever you want. But for now, just mess around with it. Don't try to make anything crazy. Just mess around with primitives, and we'll get to the other functions that Fusion and any CAD program has later. All right? Good luck.